but to come back to business. So please kindly join us back. Please do take your seats. You're welcome to bring your chai back to your table. We are starting now with our second fireside chat, Transformative Learnings from Models for Inclusive Livelihoods. It gives me great pleasure to welcome on stage. Please join me in welcoming with a hearty round of applause Mr. Amarjeet Sinha, former Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India. May I request the honored guest to please join us on stage. And a brief introduction to the honored dignitary. He is currently Senior Fellow, Center for Social and Economic Progress. He has been former Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India. He was an IAS officer of Bihar cadre of the 1983 batch and has over 35 years of experience, and his last office held was the Secretary, Department of Rural Development. He was also appointed as the Special Advisor to the Prime Minister in February 2020 to oversee projects related to the social sector. A very, very warm welcome to you, sir. Please join me in welcoming this evening. We have in our midst Ms. Smriti Sharan, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India. Let's welcome her with a round of applause, please. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Ms. Smriti Sharan is currently posted as Joint Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development. She looks after the work relating to rural livelihoods. Lakpati Didi. We've all heard about that. In the past, she has worked as Deputy Director General Establishment in the Department of Posts, among others. She has also worked as Director, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, and handled the subjects of cooperation and farmers' welfare, besides serving as Deputy General Manager, Delhi Milk Scheme in Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying. She is a member of Karuna Civil Services Association for Reach in National Disasters. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. We also extend a very warm welcome to Ms. Shweta S. Banerjee. She is country lead, BRAC International. May I request her to please join us on stage? Ms. Banerjee is India country lead, BRAC International. She oversees BRAC's engagement with the national governments and 6 states to build a government, civil society, and private sector coalition on reducing vulnerability. Previously, she has worked on rural livelihoods, digital inclusion, and social protection at the World Bank between the years 2006 and 2016. During this part, she was part of the teams that launched India's National Rural Livelihoods Mission, Jivika in Bihar, and cash transfer support for vulnerable groups in Jharkhand, among other projects in South Asia. A very warm welcome to you. So there they are, ladies and gentlemen, the esteemed panelists as well as the esteemed moderator of this session. So I now request Ms. Shweta S. Banerjee to please take this conversation forward.
Thank you very much. So this is designed as a fireside chat rather than as a panel. So we will try to keep the flow of this session as flowing and conversation-like as possible, and leave a lot of room for questions and answers. Thank you very much, Vipin and Access team, for yet another roaring livelihood summit and for inviting us to be part of that. The theme of this session is around next frontier for SHGs and the role of the Rural Livelihoods Mission in solving for the last frontier, most vulnerable households of India. The National Multidimensional Poverty Index of 2023 underscores the government's commitment to not only understanding and measuring poverty, but also using this as a vital tool for policy making. This commitment is not new. It was in 1901 with Dadabhai Nauroji's groundbreaking book, Poverty and the Un-British Rule in India, which attempted one of the first estimates of poverty. Since then, the understanding of poverty has evolved significantly moving beyond a purely economic measure to embrace the multidimensional aspects, which now includes factors such as education, health, living standards. Government and civil society organizations have increasingly adopted a more integrated, holistic approach, recognizing that poverty is not only about income. So, in response to this, the National Rural Livelihoods Mission was set up, and Mr. Amarjit Sinha was one of the few pioneers of that, leading that mission and making it a nationwide phenomena. And now we're sort of moving forward with the NRLM under the Joint Secretary's leadership, preparing and pushing for the final approvals, with Samaveshi Ajivika Yojana, which is a national inclusive livelihoods program for the most vulnerable populations of the country. So thank you very much again, both to Joint Secretaries Smriti Sharan and also Mr. Amarjit Sinha for being here today. So the first question to both of you is that you've seen the ins and outs of NRLM over time. What do you think is the strength of this whole infrastructure that we have, and what are the weaknesses and challenges with it? Pehle aap. To any of you.
Good evening, everybody. It's slightly unfair to be seated next to a towering personality who's set up the whole infrastructure. And to talk in front of Amarjit Sinha, sir, can only be described with one word, dussahas. But, sir, I will just attempt it. Um, so, the National Rural Livelihood Mission, the architects have framed it in such a way that it's a community based movement with a lot of accountability and a lot of homogeneous structures which bring in a lot of connect and also give each other the inspiration to move forward. And I don't think there is a bigger movement than NRLM. And if numbers were any success, we have got 10 crore households stitched into a big family. We've got more than almost touching 91 lakh self-help groups. We've given them funds in perpetuity. We call them community funds, and it's almost 48,200 crores almost. And we've given them a bank linkage of 9,80,000 crores. Now, these are big numbers by any yardstick. And if I were to go further into another number, the NPA is 1.5. It often goes down even lower than that. So, NPA itself tells you how robust and how systematic the foundation of this program has been. And one of the architects is sitting right here. And I think, Shweta, it would be only right to hand it over to Sir to speak about it.
Thank you very much, Vipin and the team, for this opportunity. Shruti and Shweta, for being on this stage together. Very clearly, women's collective is different from all women coming together. Women's collective is a new reality. Women's collective is a new self-perception. I'll define it by bringing to your notice what happened in the southern Indian states. As many of you are aware, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana, Karnataka, they have all been pioneers on the self-help group movement. I used to wonder, why is it that the southern Indian states report much lower levels of multidimensional poverty than the rest of the country? Why is it that in Kerala only 0.55% persons are multidimensionally poor as per the reports of the Niti Aayog 2023? Why is it in Tamil Nadu only 2.2% are multidimensionally poor? And when I started looking for the answer, that was the hypothesis I began with when I was working on my last book, The Last Mile, Turning Public Policy Upside Down. The answers were very clear. adolescent girls in secondary, higher secondary, and higher education. That is the starting point. When that happens, fertility rates come tumbling down. When adolescent girls go to high schools, higher education, it opens new opportunities of skills and vocational development for them, which is not available earlier. For their participation in schools and colleges, it is important that health services, primary health services improve. And in the southern states, they improved much well before it started happening in northern India. And because ultimately, if infants were to fall ill, or women or old parents fall ill, it's the woman who stays at home to look after them. So you needed better health care for them to participate independently. But the most important change which came when young adolescent girls used to cycle to or take a public transport to their colleges and higher secondary schools, it created a new identity. Nobody's sister, nobody's daughter, nobody's wife, but a woman unto her own. And that is the strength. To these factors, if you add access to credit, that's what the governor RBI at that time, Dr. C. Rangarajan, did 30 years ago, without collaterals lending to SHGs. And these 6 factors together created that movement, which I consider as India's most fortunate moment. If you were to ask me what is the best thing about India today, I would say that the best thing is that there is hope because of women's collectives. The women's collectives are now pan-Indian. What was true of the 5 southern Indian states is now true almost of the entire country. Thanks to all the efforts of the last 15 years, across all states, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Bihar, Odisha, Assam, Meghalaya, across all states of India, there has been a very speedy expansion. Now, how was it ascertained or how was it ensured that we did not err on inclusion? Because again, studies in Andhra Pradesh on the Velugu project had indicated that some of the poorest of the poor had got left out from the livelihood mission, from the self-help groups. The good thing for us in 2014-15 was we had the socio-economic census with us. And we said that the households, close to 90 million households, had been identified in rural India as deprived households. The insistence that we will not consider a village to be saturated unless and until every deprived household gets covered. If you look at Orissa, look at Jharkhand, look at Bihar, the character of the Jivika movement, the character of the Mission Shakti is completely different. It is building from below. The most vulnerable groups have been the forefront. The Mahila Samakhya movement also gave strength to that. Sister Sujita in Bihar, who built leaders for the Mahila Samakhya, those leaders are today the leaders of the Jivika movement in the state. So in a manner, it's a years and decades of hard work by many people sitting here, which actually created that. Now, what makes this very special? There are 2 very good independent studies, one by Anjani Kochar of the Stanford University, the other by Pramod Kumar Singh of the Institute of Rural Management, Anand, and a third one which is more a putting together of the learning, and a 2-state survey, Tamil Nadu and Jharkhand, Ashwini Deshpande's piece. Read together, what it points out, that it takes 6 to 8 years for a women's collective to generate sustainable economic activity. It doesn't happen overnight, so we'll have to have patience. हमें धैर्य रखना पड़ेगा, but we'll have to keep investing in those processes. The other point which comes out very clearly is that women's collectives, wherever they have been in the movement for 6 to 8 years, almost all of them report an increase of 22-23% in their incomes. Bulk of it, which is coming from additional resources because of animal resources, goatry, poultry, so on. Clearly, incomes have gone up. The total number of enterprises in these villages have gone up. Poverty rates have come down faster than before. So there is something right about this approach. The challenge is if 500 of the 100, no, we have now 10 crore women, 100 million women. If 50 million among them are bank linked, when you look at it starts explaining many things. Some of you would have seen the recent data from the periodic labor force survey, where female labor force participation rate in India has gone up to almost 42%. What is the reason? 2017, 18, it was at 27%. It is now at 42%. According to me, three very important factors, and all of them are linked to what we are discussing today. First and foremost, the access to credit to 50 million households through the livelihood mission, as also many other instruments, mudra loans and other loans, does create small nano enterprises on scale in a large part of rural India. And that's what the data also says. It is not saying that wages of dignity has been secured by everybody. It is saying that those having self-employed enterprises, those numbers have gone up. The second factor, if you look at the data from the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, 57% nationally, those who work in Narega are women. So wage labor available to women on a scale higher than before. And the third very critical factor, where I think the livelihood mission has really been a path breaking mission, not much written about yet. Women are not owners of land. And old traditional systems of handing land to subsequent generations, where women often don't have a share in agricultural land. 10% of the land holding is with the women, but 70% of the cultivation is done by them. What has the livelihood mission done through the Mahila Kisan Sashaktikaran Pariyojana and the CMSA, Community Managed Sustainable Agriculture? It has managed to reach out to about 17 million such women to practice sustainable agriculture, biofertilizers and biopesticides. Lot of that is showing as higher employment in agriculture. When I was listening to the earlier session on data, and in agriculture, FPOs and others moving up, a lot of it, if you do the field study, we are trying to do that. We have just started a study on decentralized community action in my new role as senior fellow at the CSCP. And what we are finding in many places, this third factor is a very important one, because PLFS tells me that female labor force participation went up because of greater employment of women in agriculture, and two, because of more micro and nano enterprises at the field level. I'll stop here. Sorry for being a long-winded.
No, not at all. Thank you for that. I think what was fascinating about what you said is that the NRLM has managed to get ownership at various levels, state, districts, and particularly at the state level, allowing for variations within states, right? So it brings me to the next question, which is at the moment we're looking at pilots for the Inclusive Livelihood Program in about 11 to 12 states. In your view, how does one move from pilot to scale without compromising on quality?
So, how we've been doing the pilots, sir, is that in the earlier pilots, the ticket size was small, so we were taking 4,000 households. We've just managed to increase the size of the innovation fund, so we're taking 6,000. Now, managing these small pilots is very easy, sir. However, subject to various approvals when we launch it like a small scheme, sir, Samaveshi Ajivika Yojana, the biggest challenge would be to maintain the same quality that we are able to maintain now. And that should be our main concern for everyone who's associated with that. Because India is so diverse and the geographies are so diverse that the hardship And the reasons for marginalization vary from geography to geography. What works for a particular community may not work for another. So we'll have to have very nuanced, micro level interventions. Now, to get to that, we'll have to have our ears to the ground and be really working at the ground through a community based organization, sir. And not just that, sir, we'll have to have a very nimble feedback loop to keep doing mid course corrections. Otherwise, sir, the biggest challenge that I think we'll have is maintaining the same quality. And I feel we owe it to the nation to keep maintaining the quality, because only then can we make it a bigger program like National Rural Livelihood Mission. So, that, according to me, is a big challenge. And the second one is how to keep building the capacity of the community based organizations, because they're really the boots on the ground and they really bring the real story back, which tells us what is needed, what training is needed, and where is it that we are falling short. Thirdly, since this program is very mentoring based, the coach plays the most important part. So, to keep enhancing the quality and the training of the coaches is so important, so that they don't lose focus. 3 years is a long time. They don't lose focus of what they set out for. If we could keep an eye on these three things, I think we'd be able to take it forward. But, sir, I'm sure you'll have more to add to this.
Thank you. No, I think somewhere I'm not a great fan of pilots. And the reason for it, I'll say very, very categorically. The base on which NRLM has built itself are the community resource persons. Hand holding at the last mile. Banking correspondent sakhis from the women's community. So in many ways, and also thanks to the pro-poor public welfare programs, where again many of these women have had access, housing, toilets, electricity connections, gas connection, and so on, bank accounts. Given this huge penetration on scale of a large number of pro-poor public welfare programs, the two really outstanding challenges which remain are the quality of employment and the quality of wages. Yes, absolute numbers, a higher number may be employed, but wages of dignity, as the periodic labor force survey 2019-20 indicated, if I earn 25,000 rupees a month, 3 lakh per annum, I will be in the top 10% of income earners in India. Which means that a large number of jobs that we've created are 14,000, 18,000, 17,000, 19,000, 20,000 per month. Clearly not enough, good enough for a wages of dignity. So what do we do on these two? So my bigger worry is that if the best example of this is Orissa. In spite of all the efforts on women's collectives, you'll find the per capita consumption expenditure in Orissa is still on the lower side. A lot of good governance practice, many things. When I dug deep into looking for the answer I got was, if you create low-level economic activity in the absence of good education and skill provision at the community level on a large scale, you are likely to remain in a low-order orbit of economic activity for a longer time. Why I say so is again data. Sorry to be using data, but if I were to look at the Reserve Bank of India 2023, Chapter 9 of their report, State of Panchayati Raj, they have done a fascinating comparison. I commend all of you to go through this. They have looked at the devolution index of states, which are the states which have given more powers to panchayats, local governments, community organizations. As usual, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, they all figure at the top there. And what they have thereafter done is to look at the performance on health and sanitation indicators in the states. There is a direct correlation between effective decentralized community action and better performance on human development indicators. There cannot be a stronger evidence to say that decentralized community action is the best thing to do. The second finding, the data we have released for 2023 on the per capita consumption expenditure, monthly per consumption expenditures. And what do we find there? The states which decentralized have better human development indicators. The states which have better human development indicators are the states which are performing better on the per capita consumption expenditure as well, which is a proxy for incomes. The same Kerala, the same Tamil Nadu, the same Goa, the same Himachal Pradesh, the same Sikkim figures at the top on per capita consumption expenditure, 30 to 35,000 per person is what it comes to. Whereas if you go to Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, you come down to 10,000 rupees, less than 3,000 per month per capita. For a family of 5, 15,000. So if I decentralize, I do better on human capital. If I do better on human capital, incomes are higher. The fourth factor, which is equally interesting, we often wonder why do new private investments in manufacturing go to the same Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, around Delhi, Gujarat, Maharashtra? Simply because that's where the human capital is. See, if you really want inclusive development, you will have to think through in terms of what happens to these hinterlands, which have youth but very limited opportunities for skills and education. That's why the other issue that we've taken up on as a study, a public report on secondary education. We hope to be coming out with a report by the end of 2025, October, where we are looking at the 14 to 21 age group to understand what is the aspiration for human capital in the 14 to 21 age group. And on the other side, what is it that the system is offering them? So some of these, for the longer term sustainability and for better employment and quality of wages, productivity will have to go up. And productivity will only go up with better skills, better education, and better health. So there's a very strong case for investing with governance improvements in these sectors to be able to get even better results in the livelihood mission.
So I think what I took away from that was that if we invest in high quality human capital in our program, especially the coaches, the MRPs, CRPs, pay them wages of dignity, invest in their capacity, their quality, their motivation, we may get somewhere in terms of scale. You touched on data already, but I think I'll push on that a little bit with you, Ms. Sharon, that how do you see the role of high quality data and MIS system, monitoring systems, from where you sit across a whole sort of range of programmatic interventions? And what do you expect in an MIS system?
So, the role of MIS is absolutely crucial in the sense that if I want a real time feedback and if we've got to do midterm course corrections, I think very high quality data is required, and also it gives the transparency in how we are implementing the whole thing. Not just me, people should be able to see what we are really doing and what is happening at the grassroots level. More than that, the data also gives us an indication of how to spread the resources, how to plan in that area. I think it's really my eyes and ears going forward. So the sanctity of the data, making sure that it doesn't have the biases, that is what it will take us forward.
So my next question to you, Mr. Sinha, is when you look at a long view, let's say we want a poverty-free India in the next 20, 30 years, where do you see the innovations brewing? I think you've already touched a little bit on that. And may I request that you not look at technology? Because the minute we mention innovation, the answer comes digi this, digi that. So maybe we look at non-technological interventions as well that you see going forward.
As I said very clearly, I do see this decentralized community action across the sector. I'm not talking only social sector. Even if I have to do metro rails better, I need to do community action. Even if I have to do NHAI roads, I need to do community action. I think this realization that there's no going away from decentralized community action if you want value for money and if you want a obstruction-free process of actually carrying out what you want. Having said that, on this data thing, just, I think I must commend the Rural Development and Panchayati Raj Ministry. They have one of the best data systems. They have been working on it. But I would also like to mention here one of the data systems which we developed and built over the years is called the Mission Antyodaya Data. I don't know how many of you refer to it. My suggestion to each one of you, look at the Mission Antyodaya 2023 data. All the other years are also there. We began by saying that, there are poverty of geographies and poverty of households. We have to address both. So we said we'll capture what is the situation in a Gram Panchayat through 48 indicators we developed initially around human development, economic activity, and public services. Over the years, subsequently, the efforts of RD and Panchayati Raj, today on 212 parameters, the localized sustainable development goal indicators, a total of 212 data points have been identified, and data is available online for each and every Gram Panchayat. There's one key difference between this data and the others. The Mission Antyodaya accepts only community validated data. We have insisted that unless the elected Pradhan and the Gram Panchayat Sabha, as also the women's collective village organization, till they sign off, it will not be uploaded. Do look at it, you'll find it very revealing. They don't just repeat any data which is given to them. If you look at it very carefully, you will realize what I am saying. It's a ground truthing as well. On a scale of 100, every panchayat is scored to see where it stands. And if we want a poverty-free India, that is the way to go. Begin from the basic nuclear primary unit, identify the gaps, remove those deficits. Because what we find, for example, in Kerala, more than 86% of the Gram Panchayat secure more than 60% marks on the basis of the parameters we define. In Bihar, that number was only 13.6%. Now, what it indicates is that the gaps in many panchayats are much more than others. If you want to become poverty free, you will really need to work on universal scale in each and every panchayat. Maybe and again, the data which gets reported, it converts into almost like a traffic signal. What are the parameters on which this panchayat is in the green, on which it is in amber, and where is it in red? If that becomes the agenda for decentralized community action with local resources, I would say, personally think it's very, very critical. The other, of course, is professionals. Like the program, like the livelihood mission. Because technology is only a means, it can never be an end.
Yes, sir.
If we don't have the last session was celebrating UPI and celebrating DBT, tell me where we would have been if we had not been able to create Aadhaar-linked accounts for all laborers of Narega, all livelihood mission women, and made 140,000 women banking correspondents.
Yes.
It would not have sailed. So, technology is very powerful. A 95-year-old widow dying on her deathbed can be paid her pension on her deathbed without a problem. Because that's what technology provides you. But that's only possible because there is this BC Sakhi, the banking correspondent Sakhi,
Yes,
who's
sir.
there at the deathbed.
Yes.
So I think what is critical to understand, community resource persons, high quality professionals in rural areas, use of technology as a means, decentralized community action with a lot of untied funds, and a very rigorous monitoring of the mission Antyodaya data at every department and ministry level to ensure that the gaps and deficits identified are the basis for all planning for subsequent years. I can say with confidence, if we do it for 5 years, things would change dramatically. Dramatically. Thank you.
Sir, I would just like to add to what you said about how the Mission Antyodaya data is validated by the people's representatives. And think, sir, that the foundation that you laid from there is what guides us when we identify the most marginalized, the poorest of the poor. We call it the participatory identification process, sir. And we've seen that in person of how it is happening in Bihar and in other places, sir. It is so insightful when when all the villages sit together and decide which are the 5 most poorest families which will get that benefit. And so I think that's the seeds that you've shown, sir. So I think that truly is the way forward, sir.
Thank you to both for recentering the human in development. Often we forget.
So before you concluding, since it's a
No,
fireside chat.
I have one more question, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So, sir, I would like to raise a question to you,
Sure.
sir. It is very easy to sit back and rest on our laurels, but I know there's no time for that. We've done 10 crores SHGs, we've done the saturation, we've got the NPA down. But the challenge is to take it to the next level, to make higher order interventions, to do skilling, to get better quality employment. So, what is it that you have for all of us here sitting in the room? What should we take from here?
I think the economic survey 4 years ago, KV Subramaniam had identified on an India-China comparison that many nano enterprises grow up to become medium and small enterprises in China, whereas very few conversions happen in India. The factors responsible for it have to be understood. One major factor has been the challenge with regard to the working capital. While access to credit is available, but sustainable availability of working capital has always been a challenge. Whole lot of other issues related to markets and so on. One of the pilots, again, it was a small program, the Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program, SVEP, which is also under the Livelihood Mission. We experimented, and I must say, hats off to a colleague of mine, Rekhi, RS Rekhi, who was a professional working with us at that time. He said, let me design this. I said, we will be, you are the master, we will follow you. The principles that he established were very good. He said, okay, we'll begin with blocks where we have good social capital. 2, we will not restrict only to the women of the house. Even the man of the house or the son of the house wants a loan, we'll give. But the condition was, just as we give a community investment fund in the regular villages for women lending from some initial borrowing and lending and savings to some community investment fund use, community enterprise fund was enhanced to almost 35 lakhs. The psyche there was, I am taking a bank loan, but I'm taking that bank loan through a route where 30% of my loan is through a community enterprise fund. The impact of that was that this has been studied by the Quality Council of India, and they found that in 99% cases, incomes have risen quite significantly. This was one innovation that was carried out. The moment an individual borrower gets a sense that the community is monitoring what he does with the money that he gets, the quality of that money is much better. If he just manages to, by hook or crook, get a loan from a bank, it's not the same impact. The second lesson, we created a new cadre of community resource persons for enterprise promotion, CRPEP. The EDI at Gandhinagar, Kudumshri, they helped us to develop our CRPEPs. Because on business principles, on costing, on raw material purchase, on so many of these parameters, a lot of nurturing and hand holding is needed. If we don't provide that support, many nano enterprises, they just die after some time. The third lesson which we drew from that this challenge of working capital will have to be resolved in a very meaningful way. The most meaningful way is to formalize the women's collectives by ensuring that the entire borrowing history or credit history, because the problem is that I may be borrowing money from the SHG, but I am not on the net of the bank's the CIBIL score. Reason for it is the loan was given to the SHG. SHG has given a loan to me. This mapping is incomplete. Many efforts are going on in the ministry, but we've not been able to crack it completely. The moment you create the complete credit history, and the moment you formalize through an MSME Aadhaar registration, a PAN income tax registration, a GST registration, the group can claim any working capital that any other businesses claim when they start off. So I think there is a whole lot of work and action still to be done. If we focus on them, if we really want a faster movement, we will need to look at some of the success factors in SVEP, and can we replicate it on scale after learning from the 4 lakh odd cases that we supported under SVEP in the pilot phase? Can we use those principles for this larger expansion of the program?
Thank you. I think you've touched on a really interesting point, which is learning. And often we don't learn fast enough or well enough to actually feed back into direct implementation. This brings me to a somewhat related but final question. Where do you see, there are lots of civil society organizations here. Can you give us an example of a good partnership between government and civil society organization? And generally, what do you expect from the CSO sector when you're in government?
For one, the success of the NRLM movement is a testament to what civil society partnership can do when we scale our efforts together. It's 1 plus 1, 11. It's really exponential. But having said that, I think Sir is going to sum it up so beautifully. So I don't have the courage to say anything more than that. Sir, please, over to you.
I think Smriti is absolutely right. One of the biggest strengths of the livelihood mission, and hats off to people like T. Vijay Kumar and others who were there in the vanguard in the beginning. My compliments to them. The National Resource Organization idea that he came up with. Any good NGO, credible NGO, any company, the National Dairy Development Board Services, Kudum Shri, Pradhan, so many examples. What was the system we followed to engage with civil society? Very basic. Once an organization met with all the standards and scrutiny to declare them an NRO, any state rural livelihood mission could engage them as service providers or in the expansion of the work that they did in the field. Very, very few programs in India have been able to build such solid long-term partnerships with very credible organizations across the country. And a lot of the gains have been possible because of that. The second thing which was equally interesting, when we were trying to move into FPOs, farmer producer companies, I remember we were experimenting with milk, for example. We took up 2 milk producer companies in Bihar, Supal, Madhepura region, 2 in Madhya Pradesh, and a 7-district program in Bundelkhand, Balini producer company. When we started, we said, how would we manage this? The very clear policy call we took, we said we will extend no capital subsidy. Capital subsidy gives us nothing. It's a waste of money. We said we'll give them human resources needed to run this producer company for 3 to 5 years. But the managers must know that they have to earn their salary through more milk pouring. Then only they'll continue after the 3rd year or the 5th year. Now, this model where the HR support to women's collectives came from the livelihood mission no capital subsidy. If I were to rattle out Balini Milk Producer Company's achievements, it has 68,000 women as members from 7 Bundelkhand districts of Uttar Pradesh. And do you know what is the total revenues from all the milk that they have sold since 2018? Rupees 588 crores. On an average, the income of every woman is more than 15 to 20,000 a month simply by this little process. I'm giving this example because the professional that I keep talking about, a very conscious call we took that we will support professionals as many as we need. The strength of NRLM is professionals. And we have to realize that development is not business as usual. You need hand holding at the last mile. केवल अगर हम ऐप बना लेते और सब कुछ हो जाता तब तो जरूरत नहीं पड़ती किसी की. ऐसा होता नहीं है. असली दुनिया में ऐसा कभी नहीं होता है. प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना ग्रामीण में वी वांटेड टू एंश्योर कि घर बने तो पता चले किसका है. जियो टैग करना, जियो टैग करने वाला तो मिलना चाहिए. वी हैड अ कैंपेन इन राइट इन द बिगिनिंग. उस समय लगा था कहाँ से खोजेंगे, कौन जियो टैग करेगा, कैसे होगा. इसरो वालों से, एनआरएसए से बात करके लोकल गांव के लोग, पढ़े लिखे लड़के, पंचायत का सेक्रेटरी, कोई डिपार्टमेंट का कोई व्यक्ति जो करने को तैयार था, तो तुम्हें 10 रुपए हम जियो टैगिंग का देंगे, आप सही जियो टैग करो. इसरो सेट सर हम लोग क्वालिटी को इंश्योर कर लेंगे, वी विल चेक, अगर करेक्ट नहीं है तो उसको रिजेक्ट कर देंगे. आई एम गिविंग दीज एग्जाम्पल्स बिकॉज यू हैव टू बिल्ड फ्रॉम बिलो. आज वी आर ऑल टॉकिंग अबाउट बैंकिंग कॉरेस्पॉन्डेंट्स. आई कैन टेल यू द स्ट्रगल टू गेट द फर्स्ट अप्रूवल. The SHG movement was going on for a long time. But in 2016, when I went with the proposal to the Department of Financial Services कि हमें चाहिए banking correspondent महिलाओं को बनाएंगे, the first answer I got was banks already have a banking correspondent in every village of the country on a commercial model called 1% model. But that 1% model is useless. अगर 100 रुपए का बिजनेस है तो हम आएंगे जाएंगे और मुझे 1 रुपया मिलेगा, क्या हम जाएंगे? So the remote parts of the country were not getting the benefit of banking correspondents. With great difficulty, we convinced them कि हमें करने का मौका दीजिए, we will try. एक प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व होता था, दूसरा प्रॉब्लम निकलता था. एसएचजी का पैसा सिंगल अकाउंट पे नहीं होता है, 2 सिग्नेटरी होते हैं, चेयरपर्सन एंड सेक्रेटरी. अब आपने तो सब कुछ दे दिया उनको, पॉस मशीन दे दिया, सब दे दिया, उसमें डुअल ऑथेंटिकेशन का प्रोविजन नहीं था. तो डुअल ऑथेंटिकेशन कराने के लिए फिर से दौड़े पीछे पीछे. तो एसबीआई झाबुआ ने कहा कि हम करके दिखाते हैं सर, हो सकता है. झाबुआ में उन्होंने एक्सपेरिमेंट किया, दिखाया कि विद अ स्लाइट ट्विकिंग ऑफ द टेक्नोलॉजी इट इज पॉसिबल. तब पता चला कि हर बैंक की अपनी सॉफ्टवेयर है और हर बैंक कैसे करेगा. फिर ये भी पता चला कि मोस्ट बैंक्स में टीसीएस इज द वेंडर. हम लोगों ने उनको भी पकड़ा कि जब इतना सरल चीज आप करके खत्म करो. अदरवाइज ऑल द मनी ऑफ एसएचजीज फॉर ऑल दीज इयर्स वाज ओनली इन कैश. आज भी बहुत सा पैसा कैश में ही है, क्योंकि डुअल ऑथेंटिकेशन ऑन द ग्राउंड ऑन अस किया. अभी उन्होंने स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया में अकाउंट है, स्टेट बैंक के पॉस मशीन से कर, ऑफ अस ऑर्डर तो हो गया, लेकिन अभी तक आज तक नहीं हुआ है.
नहीं सर, नहीं हुआ.
Now, I think these are the answer to your question. Why don't many of these nano enterprises grow? We'll have to begin from below. Unless you build from below, we will not be able to reach where we want.
Sir, I will just add to something because you mentioned Balini, so I can't hold back this little bit of information. So just recently, a host of journalists had come from some African countries, and we were to host them, and there was the Gurgaon fair going on at Saras fair going out at Gurgaon, and we took them there. So we, as usual, we called some of our champions, and we thought that they will interact with these journalists because they were making stories and op-eds. So, sir, there was this lady from Balini. She was on the board of directors, and we had practiced with her a little before, a day prior. And she came and she was very smartly dressed, looking very confident. And I just looked at her and I said, Didi, aap to bahut chamak rahe ho. She turned back, she said, Didi, ye safalta ki chamak hai. She says, जहां पीने को पानी नहीं था, जहां मवेशी के लिए सूखी घास नहीं मिलती थी, आज लोग हमसे इज्जत से बात करते हैं क्योंकि मेरे बैंक अकाउंट में इतना पैसा है. So that's what Balini has done to Bundelkhand region. Sir, I will have the temerity to just put one seed in this entire audience that's sitting here. So sitting here listening to you, I realized that you're a repository of so much of historical knowledge in the movement of how we built the self-help group movement here. Sir, how I wish somebody could make a 11-part podcast or, whatever numbers, so that, sir, sitting with you, we could just chart the journey. Because the number of people working in this sector will keep increasing, and I hope so. So it would be so interesting for us to just go through those podcasts and see where is it that we've missed the information. So, sir, and this is to the entire house, if somebody takes this up, it would be wonderful. Thank you. Of course, sir will agree. We will do a picket fencing. We will do a picket fence, sir.
I think it's a great point about institutional memory and how do we sort of build that archive, right? And Mr. Amarjit Sinha, Mr. T. Vijay Kumar, they're our archive of this whole movement. Great. So with that, let's open it up to questions, Q&A, and all your comments. Please introduce yourself and then one question, please, per person.
So, myself, Rahul, I'm coming from Gujarat Atapi Seva Foundation. So, actually, so I joined this movement in 2018 in Jambusar block of Bharuch district. So we have started this thing as a economic empowerment of the woman. So the SHG, then village organization, then block level federation. So when we will sit with them and discuss all this economic empowerment and all that thing, so surprisingly, what we get after the ensurety of economic empowerment and economic sustainability, they have started talking about social norms, harmful social norms and customs, and they have started working on that. So we need to capture those things also so that we can showcase that thing to the other organization and other places. And the second thing, the main thing in our project which played an important role, engagement of men. Engagement of men. So recognizing men who are supporting to these women to take the leadership on village and cluster level. And we recognize those men and we felicitate them during the International Women's Day and other platform. So, and right now, 5 years ago, when we used to meet to district development officer or collector for issues, so they took our application and they, मतलब वो पता नहीं था उसके ऊपर काम करेंगे या नहीं करेंगे. But what we have observed 2 years ago, we sent to these women to the DDO, and surprisingly, जो काम हमसे 15 दिन में या 1 महीने में नहीं होता था, on the spot, DDO take that call and solve the issue. So this is the real empowerment, I can say. And thank you very much for this initiative.
Thank you so much. We'll take one more question. There's a mic there, so you can walk up to the mic also and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. I'm Rashmi. I'm representing Harsha Trust. We work in Orissa and Madhya Pradesh. I'm really glad to hear the conversation what we have. I just want to, it's not question, but there's some observation. For the last 2 years, we are trying to work with some of the working with people who are into vulnerable state. people who are socially, economically excluded. Uh, I think the two observations that I want to put it is that who are these people who are living under vulnerability? We found that women who are the household who are single-headed, be it women or men, because there is a large chunk of people who migrate, leaving the elderly people left behind the villages. And they are the people who are really suffering, and they're not part of SHGs. They are being excluded. Nobody is there to take care of them. They are not part of the social security system as well. The second thing is that we are also working with the particularly vulnerable tribal group, where we saw that it is not the economic poverty, but the real issues are perhaps something else. For example, the PVTGs, the Dongoria Corn PVTGs with whom we are working, the average health expenses is annual health expenses more than 40, that drag them into a vicious debt cycle. The fertility rate is an average 7 to 8 children per woman. The debt rate among the male is pretty high. So the earning member, you'll be able to see that they don't cross 40, 45 years of age. So perhaps the issue is not the economic poverty. It's not just sufficient to work on the income generation front, but it's when we are targeting to reduce the vulnerability or working on the extreme poverty. I think it's important to see from these angles and just not looking from the income generation perspective.
Thank you. Thank you so much for stressing multidimensionality. I think both those were comments rather than questions. So if somebody has a specific question, yeah, Himanshu.
Yeah.
And
okay.
please be brief.
Just one question I have. This was really insightful session. Thank you for this. I'm Himanshu Pava, working with BRAC International India team for coaching and capacity building. I really like the concept of the hope which community institutions have created, and I'm working from 7 years with this, the quality of labor and the quality of payment. And the community institution frontline workers, CM, bookkeepers, MRPs are largely based on the honorarium. And the program like Inclusive Livelihood Program requires intensity. It's not a part-time, it's a full-time role. The dedication, the mindset, the heart, body, mind, soul, and we say they are philosopher, they are guide, the mentor, they are everything to the part of family. In such cases, how the NRLM sees in the next NRLM 2, where the quality of labor we want as well as the quality of payment from the community institutions, the arrangements through which we are taking it up, that I wanted to know.
Okay, we'll take one more question, then we'll get, yeah, the one in the back.
Okay,
I think you had your hand up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, over here.
Sorry. Okay, yes. So thank you to giving this opportunity. I am Rajesh Sharma. We are representing one of the organization Brook India that is working for the welfare of the animals. Animals especially means horses, mules, and donkeys. So donkey rare community is very deprived community. They are very much poor. They are landless and marginalized. And we, when run this campaign, we call earlier EWG, Equine Welfare Groups. That was same as SSG model. And you can imagine the condition of the females of that family. They have 10, 20 donkeys. Their husband, they work at the bricklane. Their livelihood depends only on the bricklane, on the donkeys. Their voice is very less, means zero in the family. And they are landless also. And the husband that is tired and work full day, then back to family with the use of alcohol. So they're very critical condition in that. And that campaign, when our staff went, so that they faced very much challenges. But somehow we managed to gather and organize in SHGs, lay bank linkages, and within a decade, we can see the confidence, we can see their recognition in the family. Not only the economic issues, but social issues are also resolved. So this was very good example for that. One thing was deprived, that the male community members who were also forming SHGs, later on, they were get back. And now they are thinking that, yes, we should also promote SHGs. But in banks, their accounts are not, means they are not easy to open their bank accounts. So can we think that in somehow in coming days, there can be a model that, yes, men can also be involved in that model?
Men make very poor borrowers.
Yes. No, we have experience like SGSY. We have very bad experience early. But yes, we can think of, because of this time, the recognition of SHGs is very good
Thank
at
you.
that level.
Thank you for
Yes.
your comment. I think we just have one concluding remark and we'll close the session.
Thank you for your patient listening and the comments and suggestions made, questions asked. Clearly, it's a tough task ahead because unless we are able to secure wages of dignity, the inclusive India, the developed India that we think about, and as I clarified in the course of presenting, all sectors merge together and converge to take us on that route. While a lot is happening, a lot more also needs to be done. And we must not give up the idea of building from below, because that is where hope would lie. And I think we will have to focus on education, health, and nutrition much more. Without mincing words, I'd like to say that, because on nutrition in particular, I've been writing in the newspapers as much as I can. But I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that the ability to earn when a stunted child grows is 25% less. We are forgetting and we are not cognizant of the fact that there could be irreparable damage to the learning abilities of infants and children if we don't focus on these. And it is no rocket science. Sikkim made a 8-point reduction in stunting in 4 years between NFHS 4 and NFHS 5. If Sikkim could do it, any part of India can do it. We have to be very, very focused. And again, there is no going away from decentralized community action. To the entire civil society organization, my appeal to you, many of you have also had reservations about local governance and local governments. But the times have changed. Dr. Ambedkar's reservations were very correct that, it may just superimpose the unequal society that was already there. But in practice today, what has happened is with the emergence of the women's collectives, they play like a countervailing presence, and where PRIs and SHGs can work together, decentralized community action along with other professionals, community resource persons and others. And clearly one of the requirements we will have in much larger numbers is of caregivers and nursery teachers. If preschool matters for what happens, because I was recently reading a book written by a British school teacher. She used to teach outside London, Lucy Karen. And every time the education administrators would scold her that UK lags behind in PISA score, the student achievement test and all. So she submitted a proposal, let me go and see countries which do well. She went to Finland, she went to Singapore, she went to Shanghai area of China, she went to Japan, Canada, and thereafter concluded 5 principles. The first one, if you want quality education, you'll have to provide quality non-academic preschool. And it cannot be a 3-hour or 4-hour activity. It needs intensive labor and care. If we want creches to enable women to work more, we have to visualize a daycare center, not just a 4-hour Anganwadi center, but a daycare center. How do we do that? Many of these questions will need a response as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. With that, we conclude this session. Over to Access team again.
Thank you for making it a very, very fruitful discussion, and thank you, audience, for full participation in the discussion as well. So we take this opportunity of thanking our esteemed speakers on the days and, of course, the esteemed moderator as well. May I request for a small token to be presented as a token of our appreciation and thanks. We take the pleasure of requesting Mr. Amarjeet Sinha to kindly accept this token. Thank you, sir. A big thanks to Ms. Smriti Sharan. Thank you, ma'am. Our thanks to Ms. Shweta S. Banerjee. Thank you, ma'am. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, we bring down the curtains on the day's proceedings. This was day 1 of the Livelihoods India Summit. Please do make sure to come back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Once again, a gentle reminder, 9:30 a.m. for a full day ahead of power-packed sessions and deliberations. So look forward to seeing you tomorrow. May I request you all, those of you who are participating in the Development Catalyst felicitation ceremony, please do join us at the Desire Hall at 6 p.m. Meanwhile, while you're leaving, please do not forget to carry all of your belongings, including the cell phones. Thank you. See you tomorrow morning.